Pike's Peak.
You can see that flat area was where the railroad station was. The Halfway House Hotel was back a little bit, and to see the sign.
Ooh, okay. These are the ruins of that hotel.
Coming into view for car 2 and car 3.
The train is speeding too.
Now folks, coming up on that 3-seat side, we actually have, unfortunately, our last waterfall of the day, and this one is my favorite. So out that 3-seat side, pretty soon here you're going to be able to see Pike Falls. This is called Pike Falls because it actually comes out of one of the pipes from the hydroelectric system in the region. And during the winter, which we're kind of feeling right now, during the winter this actually freezes over and forms a really beautiful ice sculpture. Coming into view for car number 3 now, out that 3-seat side, Pike Falls. Now, speaking of that hydroelectric plant, folks, we're actually coming up on the picturesque town of Ruxton Park. Population 4. Now, if you look out the 3-seat window,
Only 4
there,
people.
you will see that white house.
Yeah,
This is the house.
Yeah, this is
And
the
then
city
if you
area.
look back,
Only
that
one
big
house,
stone
4 people.
building there off the 3-seat side,
Oh.
that is the hydroelectric
No.
plant itself. This
Kind of.
particular plant is very unique. It is actually the oldest
Yeah, you can see there
continuously
are like
operating
a couple of
hydroelectric
houses
plant
here.
west of the Mississippi. It's been in operation since 1925, and to this day it continues to provide power to about 200 homes in the region.
Wow.
Now, if you want to be a caretaker
Look
at
at that.
Ruxton
Oh
Park
my
and work on that
goodness.
hydroelectric plant, you need 2 things. First, you need an advanced degree in hydroelectric engineering, and secondly, you need a Costco executive membership. Because folks, if you look down on that 3-seat side, it's starting to get covered in snow, but you can't make out that dirt road. Folks, that dirt road is the only way in or out of Ruxton Park. It stretches a mere 60, that is 60 miles to the nearest town.
Wow.
And the DoorDash out here is kind of a bummer. Black bear, there are no grizzly bears in the wild here in Colorado, thankfully. But folks, just because it is a black bear does not necessarily mean its fur will be black. We are aware of a couple bears right here on the mountain that are actually cinnamon colored. And we've also heard of black bears being blonde or even having some cool white striping on them. However, any bear that we see today is going to be a black bear. Past this boulder here, we will start seeing Deer Park. Yeah, out that 2-seat side, Deer Park. We often see deer here. We often see a lot of wildlife. Keep your eyes peeled. If you look to the very back there of Deer Park, you might notice some cinnamon-colored pine trees. Folks, those are ponderosa pines, and they don't turn that cinnamon color until they're at least 80 years old. So some very old trees back there. If you were to break off some of the bark of the ponderosa, you'd notice it smells a lot like vanilla or butterscotch. So some aromatherapy, right? Now, if you look out that 3-seat side, we have some fantastic trees as well. Those skinny trees that are grayish-white that we're looking at there are quaking aspens. Quaking aspens are probably the most famous tree in Colorado, mostly for what they do in the fall. They turn really, really gorgeous shades of yellow, red, orange. Turns the entire mountainside into a real symphony of color. However, on top of being really pretty in the fall, aspens are also tremendously interesting from a biological standpoint. Because folks, it looks like we're seeing hundreds of aspens out there, right? We're actually only looking at one organism. All of those aspen trees are connected at the root. They form a larger organism known as a grove. And in
These
fact,
are
aspen
aspens,
groves
right?
are the second largest organism on Earth.
You will pass me out.
Type of fungus colony.
I see.
If you were to rub your hand on those aspens, you notice that you have a little weird white powder on your hands. That powder can actually be used as makeshift sunscreen, and the bark is actually pretty impressive as well. It has pain-killing qualities. It's actually chemically similar to aspirin. You'll often see mole mule deer after they've just given birth, they will chew on that
Basically
aspirin
now the
bark to
winter,
kind of alleviate
no
pain.
leaves on the tree. Okay, makes sense.
So folks, we talked a little bit about Zalman Simmons. Another really famous visitor to the mountain came here in 1893, just a couple years after Simmons finished the Cog Railway. Her name was Catherine Lee Bates, and she was an English professor from Falmouth, Massachusetts. She was here in Colorado, and she decided that she'd like to take a mule-drawn carriage up to the summit of Pike's Peak. She was so blown away with the natural beauty that she saw on her trip
no, it's not
that
safe
it actually
actually.
inspired her to write down
Safe
a
now.
poem.
But
That poem
yeah,
was
the
later
rail is
set to
already
an
kind of
old
skidding.
song called Materna. We know that poem
see
and song
that.
together today as America the Beautiful. America the Beautiful actually inspired by the vistas that Catherine Lee Bates took in on
This
this
one is
very
great.
mountain. America the Beautiful actually almost became the national anthem of the United States. It lost out to the Star Spangled Banner by just a couple votes.
কিছু দেখা যাচ্ছে
সেটাই।
আই থিঙ্ক লেকটা এতক্ষণে দেখতে পাওয়ার কথা 11,000 ফিটে চলে এসেছে
Oh no. I'm gonna keep recording this. This one is great. এটা খুব ভালো আসছে ভিডিওটা।
You don't, you just, okay, so this side was up, but then that side was up. No, they stay on the same train. I don't think they turn around, I think they just use.
Now, of course, the mountain itself got its name from Lieutenant Zebulon Pike. He was here in 1805 surveying the southern part of the Louisiana Purchase. He looked up and he saw the mountain looming in the distance. He knew that he had to come and try and climb it. So Pike climbed and climbed. Unfortunately, he was in his summer uniforms and winter was closing in. So the blizzard started. Pike quickly realized that this was a very bad idea to be doing at this time of year, and to his credit, he decided to turn around. Now, he kept very, very detailed maps and journals about his trip up to the summit, and as a result,
Oh, this is
according to the native Ute, the name of the mountain is Kava Kava, which means mountain of the sun.
oh no. Oh, this is so great.
We can kind of sit down into the valley a little bit. This is very much one of the views that so inspired Catherine Lee Bates.
Exactly. Ooh. Oh, now I believe I am going to the Pike's Peak. Oh no, it's at the same time very scary.
Now, as we're chugging along here on
hope
another
we'll
one of our
survive
very steep
today.
grades, I bet there are some people who are wondering how the train is actually doing this.
Yeah, that's
So
surprising.
this train was manufactured by Stadler, that is a company in Switzerland, and what makes it different from a normal train is that we have 3 rails. You might have seen them if you look down at the feet rails. So the outside or running rails are just like you'd see on any other train. They are standard gauge, 4 foot 8.5 inches, and the train moves along those. That's for weight distribution and guiding it where to go. The real magic happens with that third inside rail running right down the center.
Very scary.
That is the one that looks like a big line of teeth. And we have underneath today's train 10 cogs that are rolling along that line of teeth in the center of the track. They are rolling along, they are interlocking with those teeth, and as a result, because they're interlocking with the teeth, we don't slide backwards on these very, very steep grades. Now, there are 2 other cog railways in the United States. One goes to the top of Mount Washington in New Hampshire. The other one actually goes down into the Quincy Torch Mine in Hancock, Michigan. Over at 8.9 miles long and going up to an elevation of 14,115 feet, we are the longest and the highest. So, hey, that makes us the best, right?
Yeah.
Folks, so if you keep your eyes open out the 2-seat side, we actually have a few bear dens right near the tracks on this stretch.
On the
So
left or
keep your
right?
eyes open for any openings in the rocks. You might notice a black bear peeking back out at you. If you're noticing that the trees seem to be at really weird angles here, well, folks, they're not. They're growing up straight. We are the ones on a very, very steep angle. The two kinds of trees that we're mostly seeing up at this elevation, there are a few aspens as well, but the thicker pine trees that we're seeing, those are what are known as bristlecone pines.
Wow.
Bristlecone pines are
Very high
a
elevation.
really interesting species.
Now the train
primarily
already
because of their
slowed down.
longevity. We know that the oldest bristlecone pines here on the mountain, they come in at about 2,200 years old. And the oldest bristlecone pines we know of anywhere in the world, those are about 6,000 years old. So very, very old trees that are passing by here on the mountain. Those skinnier pine trees next to the bristlecones, those are Engelmann spruces.
This side is so beautiful.
এটা ট্রি লাইনটা ক্রস করে যাচ্ছে দেখো গাছগুলো এতটাই ওঠে পরে গাছ
ট্রেন একদম স্লো হয়ে গেছে,
খুব স্টিপ
খুবই স্টিপ।
Anyhow, we just turned off the trees. So folks, we are at about 11,500 feet right now, and the phenomenon that we are experiencing is called tree line or timber line. At this point on the mountain, it's simply too cold, too windy, and the soil quality is too poor to support any more tree growth. So as we leave the montane climate region where the trees were, we enter into a different climate region now above tree line. It's called the subalpine or Arctic climate region, just like at the North Pole.
Almost 12,000
And folks, of course, entering into a different climate region means that we see different animals up here. Some of the animals that we commonly see above tree line include Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep. We see some birds like golden eagles and nuthatches. We see some smaller animals like pikas and yellow-bellied marmots. And we also see, from time to time, the Arctic raven.
So scary.
The Arctic raven is definitely my favorite animal here on the mountain because it's so darn smart. The Native Americans actually thought that Arctic ravens were sacred because they were so intelligent. And modern scientists have assessed the Arctic raven and come to the conclusion that the Arctic raven has an intelligence similar to that of a 7-year-old human child.
I see.
There's actually some videos on YouTube of Arctic ravens solving some basic brain teaser puzzles. It is a little spooky to
That's not
watch, but
true.
very, very cool. All right, folks, so the part of the mountain that we are coming up on now is known as Windy Point. And it comes by that name quite honestly. We often get wind gusts here up to 100 miles per hour. That is common. And the strongest wind gust that we have ever measured at Windy Point, that came in at a mere 180 miles per hour. You better believe it broke the equipment that was measuring it. That is the same as you'd find in a Category 5 hurricane.
Wow.
If you look out the Q-seed side, you might notice that the rocks seem a lot smaller than they were when we started off on our journey today. Again, that is down to that ice wedging process. Because it freezes so much more up here, that ice wedging process was accelerated, and as a result, most of the rocks that you see up here are much more eroded down.
I'm going to take a picture. Selfie.
At the base of the mountain. The Pike's Peak. That happened in 1958. That was Johnny, the man born on the mountain.
I have no idea how the train is going up.
street side coming into view is that shack where the Taggarts live. You're at 12,129 feet.
Windy Point.
All right, folks, if we could ask everyone to please be seated. I think the train is going to come to a stop here. Please be seated. Sometimes we do lurch while we're coming to a complete stop.
I think the train is
Once again,
stopped here.
folks, we will unfortunately not